people talking to a little bit. So I would like to tell you about two parallel stories
of technological improvement. On the one side, exchanges improve and their determinism improve and their speed improve, and on the other side, networks also improve and carry data from one exchange to another exchange. If you think of the 19th century and the transatlantic trade, in the first half of the 19th century, you would send data from Europe to the US via boats. It would take a week or two, maybe 2 weeks. And then you would trade locally in the US, and that would take of the order of minutes because it's completely human. It would involve shoving, running, and it was of the order of minutes. And then in the second half of the 19th century, the first cables appeared. And the boats, as a mean of transportation of data, were displaced instantaneously. But the trading didn't change. And when Marconi at the beginning of the 20th century described and proved wireless transport, then he did not make any change to that, because the incremental speed that he was bringing was very small compared to the time that it took exchanges to match trades. So from that perspective, that technology at the time was a failure. It didn't make a dent on financial trading. Now, luckily for us, around the end of the 20th century, exchanges moved to computerized trading, and then suddenly it wasn't minutes, it was seconds, milliseconds, now microseconds. And the change between, the difference between fiber and microwave became relevant again. It was only in 2012 that we opened, and I'm going to discuss that evolution in the context of what we offer. So we have lines which cover the most important trading links, and it's one from Chicago to New Jersey, London to Frankfurt. This summer should be Tokyo to Singapore, and we have many local connections. Often we have the fastest commercial links, not always, but often. We try to tell you when we are the fastest, or at least we think so. And I will discuss the last 4 years in the context of CME to NY4. It's one of the most important links. And then I'll touch a bit on Basildon to Frankfurt, because it's also a fun story. So here I put our latency since inception. When we opened briefly 8.7. We moved down to 8.53 very quickly, and we had an SLA of 8.55, and the SLA hasn't moved yet. So we're still selling our service with an SLA of 8.55, and sometimes we get the question, why is that 8.55? And that's why. That's where it stood when we opened. Now, as you can see, we have aggressively reduced latency over the years, but we're not yet at the red line below, which is the bare speed of light. We're still at some distance from that. And part of the question is, when do we get there? Can we ever get there? Can we stop at some point? That's something that we'd love to know. In the bottom graph, it's an illustration of our packet loss ratio. So, and now that we have about 4 years of data, you can see that there is something called ducting, which is happening. And ducting is a phenomenon where the atmosphere gets layered, the index of refraction guides the waves out of where you want them to go, and then you don't receive the signal. And it happens very much between April and August around the Great Lakes. So of course, traditional microwave providers do not suffer from ducting very much because they do short links and they have models to build to 4 nines or 5 nines. We specifically designed our models just for latency. And reliability was obviously important, but it came second. And we'll be improving on the ducting side of things, but I don't think we'll ever completely fix it. Now, you might have thought that we were slouching a bit, so I decided to provide a blow-up of the last 12 months. And really the story of what we do is we chisel away at microseconds, and when I say microseconds, we go out on a tower and install things to remove hundreds of nanoseconds at a time. So if you look at it close up, it always goes down a little bit. It goes down less rapidly now because we're closer to the target, but it always goes down. The guys in Germany, not on this path, the other path, drilled a hole in a concrete wall about 3 weeks ago because the cable, they don't want to go around the wall for the cable, so they literally drilled a hole. We haven't shared that info with the TowerCo yet. So you see here, we are at 32 microseconds one way over bare speed of light, and 44 microseconds to Mahwah. So the other one, the red line here, is the latency to Mahwah. And you notice there's a sudden drop at the end, which now there are very few big drops like this. And this is a tower that we acquired that took 4.5 years to acquire. This is our longest acquisition to date. And it's a tower we're really happy about because it's a tower which, you know, we think is a strategic asset that will be hard to replicate. Now, this is not exactly our network. Our network can be seen on the FCC website if you download everything and reconstitute it. But this is the schematic of it, and that's to explain why we're less perfect to Mahwah. We designed the network first really to go somewhere in between Carret and NY2, NY4. So now that we want to really be perfect to every place, we will probably need to move that splitting point a lot west. So, you know, next time when I present this, we might have moved it a bit, or I don't know exactly when, but this is the pressure we're under. We have to, you know, go to essentially as close to speed of light as theory will allow. Now, if I show you the same thing in the UK, so first we opened for service a little more recently, and really it's exactly the same thing. There we are 41 microseconds over the speed of light, and there we have a little bit of an issue to go down to the bare speed of light, and you will understand the issue very easily by looking at this. So the blue line is the direct line between Slough, not Basildon, Slough and Frankfurt, and the green line is roughly our path. And the reason we do our path here is because the crossing of the channel is 70 kilometers where we cross, and the ideal path is 100 kilometers where it should be crossed. So there we have this you know, impediment to providing the best path. And of course, when there's an issue like this, usually you believe in free markets and things and market solutions, and what you would want is 2 Eiffel towers or 1 Eiffel tower placed exactly here. So as usual in the way we operate, we collectively, the market is going to maybe provide an answer. And that answer will likely come from one of the 2 you know, best trading firms around, who are either on one side Vigilant DRW, on the other side the Alliance of Jump and KCG. And they have both filed for Eiffel towers at that very spot. It's crazy, of course, if you ask me. Like, you can't build Eiffel towers, and especially not 2 next to each other. So we certainly expect that the local UK authorities will try to make this a common infrastructure. We hope that the outcome of that, fair but fierce competition will be a great solution, which will enable everyone to provide like close to the speed of light latency. Now, in doing that, of course, the market sometimes has great outcomes, but the way to get there sometimes is a little difficult. So if you want to read about this and read about all the fun and the positioning and the story of it, you absolutely should read the blog of the sniper in Mahwah. I'm sure all you guys know about it, but on this particular one, it's great. So here I picked something, and without asking for permission, it was on the web, so I decided it was free. That was the application from Vigilant, and they're really good. They're saying, look, it looks like shit before. We're adding the tower. It doesn't change much. You don't see it, and it's still ugly. So we're not doing anything bad. Jump is doing something almost the same. They're taking the picture from 5 kilometers away and saying, I can't see it. It's so slim. So those two firms are really hard slugging at it, and I believe that on the other side, the same happens. So that's where you absolutely need to read The Sniper in Mahwah, because there's a very funny story, especially about a third firm with a grandmother having an apartment, renting it to, I believe, Vigilant to do studies without telling her grandson who works at Optiver, and then Optiver learning about it. It's a riot. The thing, you should definitely read it. All right, so that is to say that in Europe too, probably will be very close to speed of light. Now, we're going to be close to speed of light, and I don't mean us, I mean like the industry in general. But how do we decide when close is close enough? So let me give you the E = mc squared equation of McKay. So what we want to have, we want McKay to be faster than bare speed of light plus jitter of the exchange. And we would like to be McKay to be faster than the next competitor minus the jitter. That's our equation, like our business equation. And so we need to understand what that parameter jitter is, and we'd like it to be big enough so that we can at some point stop investing and be okay on the first line. And we'd like it to be small enough so that we keep our edge vis-a-vis number 2 on the second line. So we're very conflicted, and we're trying to understand what jitter is, and that's where the exchange discussion comes in. Now, jitter is not a very well-defined term. Jitter, for me, it's essentially all the things that contribute to making trades like going to one firm or another firm in a not completely determined way. So it's all the phenomena, everything, that make it so that there is no ultimate concentration of trading P&L and no ultimate concentration in our clients. And that's why we also worry about jitter. So the sources of jitter, if you think of it, are on the data reception side. So if you're in one cage or another cage and you take 2 different cross connects to the exchange, you may receive the data at different times, and maybe there's some randomness to it, maybe there isn't. There's also, it's not jitter, but it's what we call jitter for that purpose. There's private information that may come before the public information, and of course private information only goes to one firm and not to the other firms. So that is also participates in sharing the P&L. There's data processing, and that's great because that's algorithmic variety. Different firms have different ways of thinking about the market, and they send an order after having processed different strategies, and that actually provides many different time scales for a particular trade. And then once two firms have decided that they should buy something, they both send it, and if they send it at the same time, there's a 50-50 chance that one of them gets it first. If they send it separated by 100 nanosecond, maybe it's still 50-50, or maybe it's 60-40. There's some time scale also there that introduces some jitter. And of course, the nature of jitter is either random, and when I say random in time, I really mean not random, but I mean I can't explain it. Because there's nothing really random. It's just I haven't been able to give a good explanation of it. And it's either random or it's actually fixed, and some people are born in better cages than others. They have shorter cross connects. They have certain advantages that they might not have known about before they moved, but it's there. And that also helps share the P&L of trades. Oops. So so we try to measure this. So let me first address the data reception, and we try to measure on NASDAQ, and NASDAQ does not have an equal cross-connect policy between the POP and the racks, so there's some element of cross-connect length. But if you're in this one rack and you have two NASDAQ cross-connects, maybe you're not receiving the data at the same time on the two cross-connects. So we tried to measure that. And what we tried to measure was the difference between the two cross-connects was too small. So it was way less than 100 nanosecond. So that is no comfort to us because, remember we're about 32 microseconds away from speed of light. So 100 nanoseconds is still not a worry. We have to work to get even close to that. And if we look at market data dissemination, on the NASDAQ side, there's nothing of interest, meaning like it's the same reception. Now, we have done also a study on ICE CERMAC, and I will go into it. It's much more interesting. There, we have reception from the Telex Meet Me Room and reception in the Equinix Meet Me Room, and sometimes one's better than the other. I will show you data on this. Basildon, I will very quickly sift through a few slides. The Basildon is a building where there's a west and an east side, and there's data distribution layers, switches on either side, and depending on whether you're here, closer to one wall or closer to the other one, you're better off listening here or there, and there are all sorts of things which we have measured. But there again, the conclusion, as you'll see, is that the jitter is very small. And finally, the concept of when you send the data. So when you send the data, if you have many, many gateways and there are many, many ways to enter and reach the matching engine, then the different paths could be different. And I think CME they have moved to a more FIFO model. They started a while ago, and they recently converted the most important products to that model. So that also will presumably reduce the jitter, but I think the jitter on that side is also very small, so it's no comfort to us. Now, I'll zoom through those things, and I will actually make the presentation available if you're interested. That's life in the UK from the east wall versus the west wall. The only important data here is that it's of the order of microsecond or less. So, and we've done that for Euronext B versus Euronext B West. We've done that like Euronext A West, B West. It's always of the order of microseconds. So nothing really fun to report there. Oh, we do tons of things. Now, the fun thing on the market data distribution. So here, CERMAC is an interesting building. It's full of lore. It has a very long history, and there are, I hear, secret conduits from one place to another. It's an interesting place to study. So we are located both on the second floor of Telex and on the 5th floor of Equinix, and we receive the ICE feed, the 1 gig feed in both places. And we wonder which one should we send to New Jersey. So we did a study, we sent the Telex feed to the ICE feed and tried to compare. And the answer is, it's not obvious. I'm showing here a graph of the mean of the latency of two products. It's Brent and Russell, and that's through 1 day. So you can see that you're better off in one place or another place depending on the time of day. So that's already a surprise. So if you look at another day, it changes but not at the same time. So let me start calling this random because I really don't understand it. And then if you look at the centiles, then you can see that the order of magnitude, and that's really small centiles, it's 10% and 90%. And you can see the order of magnitude of the changes is very significant there. That the difference between the biggest and the smallest is of the order of 20, maybe 30 microseconds, and that starts to be completely comparable to what we do. If you look at the first centile or the 99.9 centile or the other ones, then it grows into 50 to 100 microseconds. So that actually dominates. So when we do the study, the only good way to go around this is to arbitrate the two feeds. And we're probably finally rolling out a product to do that around the end of this month, maybe early June. So by early June, instead of choosing one place or another and changing during the day, we'll just arbitrate the two feeds and send the best one to New Jersey or to the CME. And we have many graphs, and there's a paper describing what we did, which is available, just come talk to us. Now, all of this we did trying to answer the question, are we moving to a winner-takes-all situation? And of course, I cannot answer that question, that's too tough. So I will reserve the right to answer the question after the fact, when either we've seen a winner or we haven't seen one and I'm retiring, so I could say I didn't see one. So if you want my opinion instead of any thing that I can demonstrate, my opinion is that we're not moving to a winner-takes-all situation. Because the thing that will dominate is the algorithmic diversity. People trade at different time scales, and that will always be the case. So speed will always be an advantage, and any trade will tend to move and be executed faster, but there will always be trades at lower time scales. So from that perspective, I'm not really worried. Now, if you want to remember something from what I said, really what I said is, we can't stop working. We're at 32 microseconds over speed of light to NY4, but we can't stop working until we're much closer to the speed of light. And unfortunately, we'll be doing this. And the second thing is that this matters for, I believe, almost everyone, but it will not actually lead to any kind of concentration in winner-takes-all. So there's no, in my profound belief, there's no danger to the markets on that point.
Okay, thanks, Stéphane. We appreciate it. And we're going to